Wang Yibo's Hidden Chapter. The Untold Journey into the Korean Military. Part 2. The winter air had a taste to it, metallic, crisp like cold steel on the tongue. It burned the lungs with each inhale and seared the skin on every exposed inch. For the soldiers of Kongwon Base 47, it was just another day in hell. But for Recruit 1023 Lee, it was a sacred test, a quiet pilgrimage into pain and purpose. No one at the base knew the truth. No one knew that the stoic soldier who ran 3 extra miles in silence, who bore frostbite without complaint, who memorized Korean commands by torchlight and never missed roll call, was Wang Yibo, Asia's reigning superstar, voluntarily exiled from fame. His reason? To disappear. To bleed like the men who never wore Dior. To bruise like those who had no manager, no spotlight, no safety net. He needed to know who he was without applause. The Trial of the Mountain. In Week 5, the legendary Yongmei March loomed, a 42-kilometer trek through treacherous mountain passes, carrying 35 kilograms of full gear, during a storm forecast. It was a rite of passage that tested the soul as much as the body. Failure meant reassignment. Completion earned silence and a single silver dog tag inscribed with the motto, "No shadow without pain." Most recruits were dreading it. Yibo. He had been waiting for it. The night before the march, the barracks were restless. Men whispered goodbyes, some cried into their boots, others silently stared at letters from home. Yibo sat at the far edge of his cot, polishing the sole of his boots with a toothbrush. Recruit Im Sukjin, bunking beneath him, finally asked, "Why are you always so calm?" Yibo paused. "Because I came here looking for pain." Blinked. "Are you insane?" Yibo didn't answer. He just kept brushing. Day of the march. At 0400 hours, the alarm howled. Within minutes, 47 soldiers stood in formation under a sky stained with dawn, their breath puffing white against the wind. The sergeant roared commands. Backpacks slammed on. Rifles clicked. Boots hit snow. The climb began. The first 10 kilometers were bearable. Recruits sang unit chants, tried to keep spirits high. But by kilometer 17, the terrain had turned brutal. The trail vanished under 6 inches of fresh snow, visibility dropped, and one recruit slipped on black ice and had to be carried back on a stretcher. By kilometer 23, blisters had turned to blood. Knees buckled. Men groaned. One collapsed, sobbing from dehydration. And 1023 Lee kept moving. His face was ghostly. His lips cracked from the cold, but his eyes, they were glowing with a fire that unsettled the others. He was no longer walking. He was fighting something invisible with every step. Personal demon, perhaps. At kilometer 30, his right boot split open. He didn't stop. The squad begged the sergeant to allow him to rest. "He's limping. He'll collapse," someone shouted. But the sergeant looked at 1023 Lee and simply said, "If he doesn't stop, neither do we." They didn't. They all finished, limping, dragging, on the verge of collapse. But they did it together. And when they did, the sergeant walked over and placed the silver dog tag into Yibo's hand personally. "You didn't just pass," he said. "You made everyone else finish with you." Yibo didn't smile. He just gripped the tag tightly in his palm, knuckles white, and whispered, "Thank you for not stopping me." Unspoken bonds. After the march, something changed. The other recruits no longer saw 1023 Lee as the quiet outsider. He was now the silent guardian of the platoon, the one who bandaged their cuts, swapped rations with weaker men, and massaged cramping legs without a word. He fixed a broken heater in Barracks C during one of the coldest nights. No one asked him to. He just woke up at 2 a.m., grabbed a toolkit, and worked by moonlight until warm air returned. He patched a fellow recruit's ripped sock using dental floss and a needle, explaining only, "Blisters come faster than regrets." One night, they found him teaching another soldier how to read. In a corner of the barracks, lit only by flashlight, Yibo had written the Korean alphabet in the snow and patiently guided the man's fingers across the letters. No one asked questions anymore. They only nodded. Whispers in the wind. But the peace wouldn't last. By week 8, rumors began swirling. A delivery truck driver claimed he recognized 1023 Lee from a poster outside a music store in Busan. "He's Wang Yibo," he whispered to a kitchen recruit. "I swear on my life." The rumor spread like wildfire. And yet, none of the recruits confronted him. Why? Because by now, even if he was a superstar, they didn't care. He had earned his place. Still, the higher-ups couldn't take the risk. One night, without warning, Yibo was pulled from training and brought to a remote office overlooking the valley. Inside, a tall man in uniform was waiting. Colonel Han, commander of the unit. He looked up from a file. "You broke protocol by being here," he said quietly. "And yet, you've done more than any man we've trained this year." Yibo didn't flinch. "I came here to disappear. If I've failed that, I'll leave." Han studied him for a moment, then slid a paper across the desk. "You won't leave. But from now on, you'll be transferred to Recon Unit Echo 7. No barracks, no base. You'll live in the wild. Train solo. And speak only when necessary. Do you accept?" Yibo signed the form without hesitation. The shadow of the mountains. Recon Unit Echo 7 was infamous for training its men in isolation, teaching stealth, terrain navigation, and cold weather survival. The average dropout rate was 75%. The unit had no comfort, no routine, no heat. Yibo lived in a dugout beneath snowdrifts for 11 days, surviving on dry rice and pine bark tea. He set traps for rabbits. He built a bow from tree limbs and string. He communicated only through hand signals with a fellow trainee named Miho, who later confessed. "Some nights I thought I'd die from the cold. But then I'd look over, and 1023 Lee was just meditating in the snow. Like he wasn't human." One mission involved crossing a frozen lake with 30 kilograms of equipment strapped to his back. Halfway across, the ice cracked. Ba fell through. For 4 minutes, he was submerged in glacial water before clawing his way out using a combat knife. When medics arrived, they tried to take him back. He refused. Instead, he walked 5 kilometers to the extraction point with frostbitten fingers and water sloshing in his boots. That was the day the nickname Ghost Walker was born. Returned to the base a hero in the shadows. By month 4, Yibo was quietly transferred back to the original base. This time not as a recruit, but as a field instructor for stealth and survival. None of the new recruits knew who he was. But word had spread in whispers. He came back from Echo 7. He crossed the lake. He never screams in pain. Some began to watch him from afar. Others asked to be in his squad. But Yibo didn't seek recognition. He only taught, trained, sharpened. And when a recruit sprained his leg during night patrol, Yibo carried him 4 kilometers uphill without breaking stride. It was during a campfire debrief that a sergeant finally asked, "Why do you try so hard? You've already proven yourself." Yibo looked into the flames and said, "Because I owe the world a version of me that has no shortcuts." Snow crunched beneath his boots like shattered glass as Wang Yibo stepped across the threshold of the South Korean military base in Gangwon-do. It was his first hour as Lee Yunbo, the name that would replace his identity for the next 2 years. No cameras, no security team, no designer luggage. Just one man walking into oblivion. He didn't flinch when the gate slammed shut behind him. He didn't speak when the other recruits whispered about the foreigner with the dead eyes. He didn't even react when the drill sergeant grabbed him by the collar and shouted, "You think this is a movie, pretty boy? This is war." Ba just nodded. He had already made peace with the fire. What the world didn't know was that Wang Yibo, global star, idol to millions, ambassador of luxury brands and top-billed actor, had walked away from everything willingly and disappeared into the cold. His agency only said he was taking a hiatus. They didn't mention the blood tests, the psychological screening, the classified paperwork, or the final goodbye he shared with Xiao Zhan at the Shanghai airport. "You're really doing this," Xiao had said, gripping his wrist tightly as they sat inside a private lounge. "I need to know who I am without all of this," Yibo had replied, voice barely above a whisper. "When I come back, I'll be more than a name. I'll be real." Xiao Zhan didn't argue. He just pulled him into a long embrace. "Then promise me one thing," he said against Yibo's shoulder. "Don't die before I see you again." Day 1, the cut. It wasn't just the uniform or the freezing wind that stripped Wang Yibo of his former life. It was the razor. Under flickering fluorescent lights, a gruff army barber ran electric clippers across his head, sending tufts of jet-black hair tumbling into a pile of other dreams. Each lock that hit the floor felt like another part of Yibo's old self dying quietly. Another recruit joked, "Hey, you look like that idol guy my sister likes." Everyone laughed. Yibo didn't. In the mirror, he didn't recognize the face staring back. Buzzed hair, hollow cheeks, no eyeliner, no sparkle. Just a man. The barracks of silence. His bed was the top bunk in the far corner, right under a broken heater. Every night, the wind whistled through the cracks and cut into his bones. Some nights he shivered so hard he thought his teeth would crack. But he never asked for a blanket. That first week, the recruits tested each other. One tried to steal his gloves. Another poured cold water on his mattress. One even mocked him for being too quiet to survive here. Yibo said nothing. But during hand-to-hand training, he surprised everyone by flipping the loudest bully flat on his back using a basic judo move. No drama. No bragging. Just precision. The others started keeping their distance after that. But the silence made it worse. No phones. No music. No fans cheering his name. No Xiao Zhan laughing at his sarcastic jokes. Just the rhythmic thump of boots on snow and the mechanical shouting of drill sergeants. And at night, the haunting hum of homesickness from grown men pretending not to cry into their rolled-up jackets. Yibo didn't cry. But he did stare at the ceiling for hours, whispering lyrics from old songs. Not to remember who he was, but to remind himself of who he didn't want to be anymore. The ice crawl. On the 6th day came the ice crawl. A brutal rite of passage where recruits must crawl 800 meters on their stomachs across frozen gravel, under live barbed wire, while flares and simulated gunfire erupted overhead. Yibo was paired with a fellow recruit named Sangwoo, a stocky boy with asthma and a limp. "You'll slow me down," Yibo said bluntly. Sangwoo grinned. "Good. Maybe then they'll shoot you first." They began the crawl at 0500 hours. Halfway through, Sangwoo's arm gave out. He couldn't move. He wheezed violently, face red, hands trembling. Yibo looked up. No one was watching. He could finish. He could leave Sangwoo there and earn his record. Instead he crawled back. He grabbed Sangwoo's vest strap with one hand and started dragging him, inch by inch, across gravel that shredded his elbows raw and tore his knees open. The flares exploded above, turning the frost into sudden firelight. By the time they crossed the finish line, Yibo collapsed, blood seeping from his forearms. Sangwoo threw up beside him and whispered, "You should have left me." Yibo looked at the sky. "I'm not here to win," he murmured. The night of the starless sky. On day 11 there was a storm. Heavy snow, biting wind, power out. The barracks were freezing. Yibo sat in the corner, back against the wall, eyes closed. The others were huddled together for warmth. Then someone tapped his shoulder. It was Jisoo, the quiet one who always kept to himself. "You're not like us, are you?" he asked. Yibo opened his eyes. "I'm just trying to become like you." Jisoo nodded slowly. "Then you're doing better than most of us already." They sat in silence, breath fogging in the dark. And for the first time since arriving, Yibo didn't feel completely alone. The first letter. The recruits were allowed to write one letter home that week. No phone calls. No internet. Just pen and paper. Yibo stared at the blank sheet for 2 hours. Then he wrote, "I don't know who I am anymore. But that feels like progress. Here there's no applause. No special meals. No favorites. Only pain. Suffering. Silence. And yet, I'm still standing. I think I'm becoming someone worth knowing." He didn't sign it with his real name. He didn't send it to anyone. He folded it, placed it in his locker, and sealed it behind his dog tags. A reminder to himself.